My name is Wade Thompson. I come from the States. I grew up in a state called Arkansas, kind of in the South, near Texas, west of the Mississippi. I guess I have a pretty storied background. I grew up, my dad was in the theme park business, and so grew up as a kid just running around in a theme park, enjoying it best when it was closed. That was kind of my younger years. Eventually went to university, got a degree in education, and then outdoor education actually, and then pursued a career in whitewater rafting for about 8 years. And that took me kind of traveling all over the States, chasing whitewater. Towards the tail end of that career, I guess, if you will, God kind of got back a hold of my heart and said it was time to work for Him. So I started pursuing different avenues in which to serve Him, which eventually led me to Scotland to go through a course in leadership development and missionary training. So it was only meant to be a 10-month program, but the staff invited me to stay, and well, I'm now here 10 years on a 10-month commitment. I had worked at a youth camp called Young Life. They had a camp years and years and years ago, and a friend of mine that we were horse wranglers together had started working for this organization called Church Resource Ministries, and we had gotten back in touch, and she recommended going through their ministry development, their leadership ministry training. And at that time they had 2 training sites. One was in Glasgow, Scotland, and the other in South Africa. And if truth be told, I would have probably chosen South Africa, but Glasgow was the first one starting. It was its start date was the closest, and so that's really kind of what brought me here, is because it was first. And it was also recommended that the staff that was a part of that team would just really felt like I would gel well with those guys, and I did, and loved every minute of it. Culturally, there's a lot of differences between the United States and Scotland. For me personally, the biggest change was just moving to Glasgow, moving to the big city. Grew up a country boy. Those years as a raft guide, I lived in a tent in the woods. So living in a small town, grew up in small town, grew up rurally, kind of on farm. So that was home. And moving to the big city was probably a bigger culture change, a bigger culture shock than actually the culture of Scotland. I found the people of Scotland very warm and welcoming. I think folks, there seemed to be a love-hate relationship with people from the States, and it was always kind of fun, some of that dialogue, and one kind of being excited about where you were from and what life was like there, but on the other hand, they would often tell you what was wrong with our government and the way we do things, which was always led to kind of some interesting conversations. But I've loved it here. I think like most Scottish folks, I could do with a little bit more sunshine and dry weather, but I feel like I just kind of fit in with that. The training course was called New Communities. The program was called New Communities. And during that first year, we planted a church called Regarding Hope in Glasgow. And so very quickly after that, kind of just on staff with the church. It was a fledgling church plant, if you will, and as things started to grow, just kind of continued to work closer and closer with that community and with people, really trying to reach that next generation, really reaching the university students, and feeling like the West End of Glasgow, kind of that hub around the University of Glasgow being a place where the nations were actually coming to, a lot of international students, and so many of us were kind of getting plugged in and working with different student organizations and people coming from all over the world, and just kind of pursuing them with the gospel of Jesus. Over the years, kind of as working with the church, becoming an elder in the church, and just continuing to serve that church, a few years back, my heart has really kind of started it broke for the existing church, for the church in Scotland, and seeing just a lot of churches that were in positions where they could use a little bit of help, a little bit of influence, or a little bit of just someone to come alongside or to help, and a lot of churches without pastors. And so they're part of the organization that that I work with, Church Resource Ministries, has a division called Return, which is just kind of really helps churches through transition, through whether it's crisis or just kind of natural transition they find themselves in. So I kind of started plugging in and working with these guys. They've been doing it for a bunch of years in the States, and really kind of felt like there's a lot of churches in Scotland that could use that kind of transition ministry. And so that led me to just do a lot of pulpit filling here in Glasgow as we started, and in the surrounding areas, we kind of just started to reach out and just through connections and networks, just kind of serve the church and help in any which way we can. Yeah, I'd met Ross probably quite a few years ago, probably just once when I think we crossed paths at a service at Rehope or somewhere. I don't even actually remember. It's probably so long ago. But and I also knew some other members of Airdrie Baptist, including Billy Mitchell. We worked together for years at the Glasgow City Mission, and I think it was one of those times when Ross was going to be away, asked if I would be willing to kind of fill in, to kind of preach the Sunday evening services, I believe. And so originally that was kind of my first introduction to Airdrie Baptist, and then after that preached at some of the youth events and some of the youth services, and then as Airdrie was thinking about transitioning their evening services and some of the changes that were coming through the pipeline, kind of asked if I would come along and help out with some of those transitions and help Ross with some of the preaching load. I felt really welcomed, just right from the get-go. Felt really welcomed into the life of the church, and then since being here, just really feel like there's a core of people here that love Jesus. I mean, they really love Jesus, and they really, and I think they really want to see other people love Jesus. I think they want people that don't know Jesus in this community to know him. And I think that people like talking about God and talking about the gospel. And even in the midst of all the struggles and the trials that this church seems to be going through at the moment, their eyes are still on Christ, which is cool. It's a good place to be. My prayer for Airdrie Baptist right now is that we would get really serious about prayer. That we would become a people of prayer, and that we would start seeing and proclaiming some amazing fruits from prayer. I think and I even think maybe just in the last couple of weeks that maybe there's maybe just a little bit of a shift, and maybe this news here recently and just kind of some of the hard things that folks are going through. And I think that, when you're at the end of your rope and that's all you've got is prayer, maybe that's what it's taken. But I think that I would like to be a people of prayer. I think we can change this city through prayer. That's what I'd really like to see. And my prayers for that, and then for us to get healthy physically, start seeing some physical healings start taking place.